Hello, everyone, and welcome to EdTALK Coffee. I'm very excited today to host a very inspiring leader joining me from beautiful Bangkok. Welcome, Dr. Ryan Persaud.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So, Dr. Ryan is an international leader who's been in education sector for more than 2 decades. He's been in three continents, 4 countries, leading different roles. As I can see, more than 6 roles across different schools. So from South Korea to Canada, back to Korea, then to Brazil, and now to Bangkok. What's the most exciting part about this journey, and what's the most challenging one?
Great, thank you. I think in terms of being exciting, I mean, I have to be honest, watching my girls grow up internationally, I guess I'm going to answer that first question as a father. My girls were born in Canada, but we went to Korea when they were 4. So they're educationally, they've only known international schooling. And so to give them that opportunity, that privilege, and I'm sure many parents at international schools feel this way, giving them that opportunity to travel the world and get an international school education, have the opportunities to mix with cultures from all over the world, experience different types of curriculum, how different curriculum can be delivered. It's been great, and just to watch them blossom. So that's certainly the most exciting. And I've had quite the journey as a leader as well, and I know we'll get into that, which has been exciting and gratifying. And I pinch myself sometimes, to be honest. I think challenging. I think every role and every country comes with its set of challenges. One of the things I certainly can pass along to leaders who are moving from country to country is it's really important to understand that country's culture. When you make those moves, when you enter an international school, you can't take what's been successful in one culture when you move to wherever it is and assume that's it's going to be the right way to operate, the right way to interact with people, to build your team, to norm with your team, to collaboratively work together, and it really has to be a learning experience for anybody walking into that. You have to be open to learning, making mistakes, and building understanding. So I think that's certainly, I think, one of the challenges that I think can transcend every experience I have from country to country.
Very exciting and interesting at the same time. And I think nowadays education is becoming more standardized, more international. And if we think about it, that moving from one country to another, despite the cultural, social differences, language, it's still the mission of education is one mission everywhere. And right. Yeah, I value that. You mentioned it's a learning experience because, yes, it is a learning experience because education is about connecting with people, supporting them, embracing change here and there. So I wanted to start this discussion with a very exciting question, but before I had to give a good introduction about Dr. Ryan, and I will leave that to you to tell us more about your education, your background. I believe you started as a teacher. So how do you define yourself now? You are a father of a twin beautiful girls. You are a husband. You are a school leader. You are an educator. What defines you? How you define yourself?
Yeah. You mentioned a lot of it, father and family person first. That I think for many of us, that although we put so many hours into the school, I first start there because that grounds me. When I have a difficult day, it's my wife and it's my children that help ground me and bring me back to reality, and sometimes remind me of what the joy is in the job that I do, or just in terms of being in this profession. But when I think professionally, I have this drive to improve schooling and to make progressive change in what in many ways is still a very archaic system. And we see a lot of instances where schooling is still being done to students, onto students, rather than students being in this symbiotic relationship with the school and having a part in what is happening in education. And that is a big drive for me. as I've taken on this project of VERSO and this startup enterprise, and we're being, very forward thinking in what we're trying to do. And for me, it's trying to lead with integrity, with passion and empathy, and just trying to be a role model for my leadership team, but also the community that I serve, and that's very important to me.
Yeah, and speaking about VERSO School, this is gonna take a lot of our discussion, because this is one of my goal, actually, to highlight and pinpoint the success you're doing at your community and your school. And I recall from the casual discussion we had before, you were speaking about a new approach in teaching and learning, a new approach in how students study in the classrooms, even in the way you name teachers. You said it's change designers. So this is very exciting, actually. And what's more exciting about that is, I've been in the education sector for almost 18 years. I was a teacher and I played diverse roles. When it comes to theoretical planning, there is a lot that has been done into pedagogy and education. When it comes to implementation, always there are challenges, and we go down to implementing 10 or 20% of new strategies. And this is something I have witnessed in multiple countries, multiple ecosystems.
Yeah.
So how were you able to change the whole ecosystem, the whole traditional, let me call it the rigid system of schooling, which comes with curriculum, assessment, stress, all of this cycle that everyone feels very, very challenging to get escape of?
Yeah, great question. And I think one that is good for the audience to hear. But I want to first say that I am not the founding head of school, so I want to give respect where respect is due. I came in year 4, so I've been here 2 years, year 4, year 5. We celebrated 5 years last year. Now we're into year 6. I did just re-up my contract, so I will be here through July 2029, and I'm very excited about that. So let me start there. The project came about, it was the brainchild of a Hong Kong family that owns several schools, one being the American International School of Hong Kong, and then the BTS group. People who are familiar with Bangkok will recognize them from they're the SkyTrain company, but they have many other companies. And the owners came together and they had this vision of building this forward-thinking school. So they actually visited 25 schools around the world. And you talked about many of the things they were looking at, right? Pedagogy and assessment, and classroom layout, how buildings are constructed. And so they had this grand dream of trying to push things forward. They also hired on IDEO, which is a design thinking company out of San Francisco. And so they helped with some of our DNA and our thinking around our pillars and our mindsets, which you can find on our website, mission and vision and those types of things. So when you look at the physical building, we're built in circles, so which is very different. If you look at from an airplane or a drone footage, some people have nicknamed us the Apple or the Google campus. So that's what I talked about, pinching myself when I come here. And I still like to give tours, even though, of course, we have a marketing admissions team. It's nice to give tours because I get to see that view again for the first time of looking at our campus. And so I think that in itself was forward thinking. Our classroom spaces they're open. We have movable walls, we have movable furniture, very flexible spaces. So what is fascinating and wonderful is that you'll see between the early years to the middle loop buildings, up into the upper loop, what we call the upper loop is high school, middle loop is middle school, lower loop is elementary, that the construction of the building is the same, but the way the learning designers, our teachers, have laid everything out is very, very different. And I think that speaks to the type of learning we try to do. So we are an American curriculum school. We've introduced APs, and that was a bit of a market response because Bangkok is a very competitive market. As you know, we talked about this a little bit last time. And so we're trying to find that balance of being very forward thinking, but also market responsive. And kids will still come here. They'll have their, they might have their math, they might have their English. We use American standards. But we also carve out time for learning labs, and that's interdisciplinary education. So from early years right up to the upper school, they are doing these learning labs, these interdisciplinary project-based labs, and they take on 4 a year. So it's 1 each quarter. By the time they get to grade 12, they actually do a full year. We call it a vertex. So they've come to the top. They're taking on this big PBL project with the help of every student is attached to an advisor, and they're running a PBL project on their own with guidance, because conceivably they've been with us some time and they know how these things, the structure of these projects. So that's a little insight into what makes us different.
Oh, it's really exciting. I would say that if I want to go back to being a student, I will definitely choose to be at your school.
Yeah.
To be honest, STEM education, interdisciplinary approach, it's something that we need to have in our educational systems. And unfortunately, there are struggles around implementing and integrating it for the reasons that, and I think you have addressed it. It's I can see what's happening at your school. It starts with a vision. From the very beginning of the vision of the school, there was this forward thinking around how we want the experience of teaching and learning.
Exactly.
And this is something schools might be suffering from, which is how to bridge the balance between the traditional, how the school was built, the vision, and the fast change that happened into the education.
Exactly.
And I believe, and I believe definitely your students are more prepared for the job market, are more prepared.
Yeah, we we only have 2 graduating classes, so we don't have a lot of data, but our learners are getting off to university. We've had a couple have gone to University of Toronto, Boston College, several in Netherlands, in the UK. So we are showing that you can do things a little bit differently and still go on that pathway. And not that that's the only pathway. We did have one student take a gap year because she was a social justice activist. She made the Time Under 24 list in 2024, the 100 under 24 years of age. She made the list. And so that was really big for the school because it showed that you can take a different path. She will go to university. She just took some time off, and lots of course, learners are choosing to do that too. I think one of the things that, for schools looking to do something like this, and because you touched on it, so let's go back and speak to that, because that might be, so some people in the audience might be wondering. I think, you have to look at your schedule. I think that's one of the starting points before you get it. Yes, we can have the mission, vision, and you can have the, we've got our mindsets and our pillars and that the wonderful words that guide us, but you still have to have a schedule that works. You're still a school, right? You're still bound by a certain number of hours because parents work, or there's got to be drop off, their pickup, there's got to be extracurricular activities outside of after school, or some students do things outside of the school for extracurricular. So you have those kind of design constraints. And so for us, it was really thinking about, okay, how can we design a schedule where the learners are still hitting the standards for, like I said, math or English and things like that, but then still be able to incorporate some of these learning labs, these big projects into the everyday schooling. And so that's where we tackled things. We looked at, okay, where can we bring standards into the projects and make these interdisciplinary projects and hit the standards there, and then what needs to be taught outside of that project time. We have well-being, you have physical education, we call it well-being. It's a more holistic approach. We have performing arts, so the kids go to, they have visual and music and things like that. So we still incorporate those things. As we got into the high school, the upper loop, of course, that's where it becomes more challenging. And I can see the audience probably thinking, wow, okay, how do they do that? So, we adhere, kids, especially starting in grade 9, they've got to get their courses done. You're out, we're an American school, so your algebra 1, your algebra 2s in grade 10 and those types of things. So we've been able to work a schedule where Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday would be those single courses. And then we put in every Wednesday was our interdisciplinary time. And that's how we've been able to make it work. And that's part of the reason why I believe the owners and the visionaries decided to go with the American curriculum and the AP, because you have a lot of flexibility. If you're in an IB school, it's a little bit more locked down in 11, 12. And if you're in a British school, there's a lot of exams and that as well, so it becomes a little bit more difficult. So with this, kids can even still take APs if they want. We have a pathway for, we're WASC accredited, so we still have a pathway for students who don't take any APs, but they can still get an American diploma.
Very interesting. And let me ask, at what age your students can start selecting courses or go for electives or changing what subjects they want to study? Do they have the choice to do that? And
the choice would come in the upper school. So that's one thing. I know that some American curriculum schools do have some choice in the middle school, but because we've got the interdisciplinary projects going on, that's where some of the sacrifice happens. That our parents understand that. I think those that are here understand what we're trying to do, and they see the value, as you alluded to earlier, that the skills they're getting are easily transferable, to something outside of school, or when they get into university, or post VERSO life.
Yep. It's really exciting to speak about skills as well, because we've had a lot of discussions within different sessions we had earlier, and one of the outcomes we had that in a very rapid changing world, we cannot anticipate what jobs are going to arise in 10 years. But what we are sure about it, what skills are needed. And it's a wake-up call for schools all over the world to start a little bit twisting into more focusing on what skills, not underestimating or overrating the importance of knowledge. Definitely, this is the first layer of the knowledge pyramid, but focusing on how we can build competency skills in students in a very rapid changing world. I think this is a very strong message that all leaders must put in their strategies.
That's skills. A really good point, because we are a competency-based school. So, we don't use letter or numerical grades. We use a lot of descriptive feedback, and we teach to our competencies, yet we're grounded in the standards. And, you're right. You still have to have knowledge. If I'm especially, let's say I'm at the high school level, and I'm asking students to, you're bringing in math, you're bringing in physics, you're bringing in English language into this learning lab, this interdisciplinary experience, you've got to have a certain baseline of understanding of the written language, right? And so, yes, there's knowledge there. Or, kids are always going to have to understand how to use the Pythagorean theorem at some place in schooling. It's going to be there as a teachable, as a teachable formula. But one of the things we've looked at here more recently is the OECD 2030 skills. And that is a great framework that's helped guide us more recently. And of course, there were other frameworks before that, which they were looking at as they designed out what these skills would be, these competencies that we would be looking at as an institution.
Interesting. Before I jump into a very important topic that is listed on my agenda for today's call, I'm curious to ask you: do you visit the classes during the day, school day? If you do, what does it look like? What's the school day for a student, a teacher? And are students excited about that? They are happy about this experience, or they find it sometimes challenging?
Yeah. Great question. Yes, I do get around. I can relate to heads of school all over the world that say, they're going to try and get in the classrooms every day. And, sometimes we get bogged down with meetings, or there's surprise people that want to see us. That happens to all of us. But I certainly try and get around at least several times a week. I was in classrooms just this morning in the upper school. So I put time in my calendar, so I make sure that I do it. I think it's really important for us to be able to understand the people that we're trying to serve, which are the learners, right? Sometimes if you're bogged down in a couple of days for meetings for a couple of days straight, you can easily lose focus of why you're in this building. And I think the magnitude of the role that you're in as a head of school. So now to your next part of your question, what do I see? It can be a variety of things. So if I'm in early years, I might see learners, playing with Play-Doh, and you've got their learning designers on the floor with them, or they might be doing something with Lego, Play-Doh, blocks, story time. I've been down and read stories to the early years. I've been invited as guest speaker. As I'm getting into the elementary then, which is, 1 to 4 for us, grades 1 to 4, then there could be more structured writing time, some math. But one of the things I love is I'll see when kids have that opportunity to write, the teacher may do the mini lesson and then they're sent off to, let's say, practice their writing. Well, because our spaces are so flexible, some kids may be writing at a desk. Some may be writing sitting on a beanbag on the floor, and someone may be laid out on their stomach on the carpet, but they're all doing the same task. It's just that flexibility of what makes them comfortable. You won't find that everywhere. I remember visiting a class last year that was just working on some coding. And, they were kind of all over the place, and the students, a couple of them wanted to show me the coding work they had done on their iPad, and I got down on the floor and I was laying on my stomach, just having them show me what they had coded. So I think we're very flexible that way. And then as you move up, you're going to still see the movements. I was the upper school math class I was in today was Algebra 2 that I walked by and just spent a few minutes observing. And because we have writable walls and writable desks, there's a lot of movement even in math class, and a lot of looking at examining each other's work on the walls. Is there different ways to solve a problem and things like that. So it's a very active environment. The other part of your question, how do students respond? Well, I really think in a variety of ways. For some learners who have been with us a long time, they've obviously gotten used to what we do. They understand what VERSO is. Some students that are coming from a traditional school definitely will have some adjusting to do, because they've never been given the freedom. They've always had to sit at a desk for a majority of the day, unless it's recess or physical education time. And so there comes some reteaching there, in good and bad ways. Sometimes it's a little too much for them to handle, and they need some time to understand that there is some structure to our day, and then there is some freedom to it as well. So it's interesting to see, and I think our learning designers that have been here for quite some time, they understand that they're really able to pinpoint and understand students, and oh yeah, that one looks like they've been at a traditional school for some time, or that one looks like actually they've been in a Montessori, so they understand the setting when they come over to VERSO, because Montessori kids tend to adjust very easily to what we're doing here.
It's exciting, and I love the term, the learning designers. And you never mentioned teachers in for the 26 minutes that passed, and this. And really, I love the idea that everything planned as a vision moved into a strategy and moved into implementation. And I won't ask further questions because I can see the full picture and everything happening around the school. And thank you for giving us this journey that anyone who's watching this can just meditate for 30 seconds and imagine themselves within VERSO School and imagining the physical building, the connection. I'm sure that there might be quite some challenges, but I'm sure that there are plans and strategies to deal with these challenges. So, and this is one of the reasons actually I wanted to speak with you, because I think the best way to move forward with education is to look at success stories, to look how people have done changes and how this made difference, because I think we have no choice than moving forward with education. And I would like to move a little bit outside the school context and operation, ask you about, uh, is there a room for artificial intelligence? In the last 1 year or so, there is a lot of focus on AI and how AI can embrace, can support, can enhance education at different levels. So I would like to know your perspective on that, being in education for almost 2 decades, and you have witnessed all the changes that had happened, and you've been part of all of that. Do you think AI represents an opportunity If it is, what is that opportunity, or is it a threat for systems?
I certainly see it as an opportunity. Like any new thing, I've seen articles written around when the calculator was first introduced in schools, and the resistance to that, and with every other thing that's come along, I think, in terms of technology. Now, that being said, of course, I believe in things have to be age and stage appropriate. I think there have to be limits to use. There has to be good teaching around use as well. So there's a lot of, I guess, asterisks I would add to the statement that I believe in using it, but I think there's a big education part to it as well, to make sure that where there's no abuse by the students, they're not cheating, of course, because that's a big concern. I also believe that we need to invite parents in, so there's understanding on their behalf as well. I'm sure, we do have parents that, of course, are using it as well, but I think from an education perspective, parents are our partners. We need to have them in, and we've run sessions during some of our coffee morning sessions with parents to have them in and talk about what we're doing here. And then I think there's good vetting too that has to be done with applications, because between me and our director of technology, we get hit almost daily with different opportunities for something to do with AI, with software application, that type of thing that we should be trying and using in school. So we have a process that through our director of curriculum and our director of technology, and if a teacher wants to do something, they've got to go through that process, and then we trial on a very minimum level, because we also don't want to take on a whole spread of tools, because that becomes difficult to manage as well.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think the piloting or the testing approach is definitely the best way we go with AI. And one of the things that I have observed over the last year, speaking with the schools and educators, that there is a kind of urgency or force. Some of them are forced, especially teachers, to use AI, even though they cannot justify it. Why? So some teachers, they see their classes are running very well. They are hitting the goals and objectives, but still they are looking for some AI tools to use, because they feel they want to be part of this AI trend that's happening all over education. So I think there is another message here that we need to focus on, that before we jump into implementing AI, let's ask why, how we implement it, what goals, what changes, and definitely goes back to what gaps we need to fill, because education isn't about tools, it's about the outcome, it's about the goals, it's about how students experience learning. So if AI comes with a cost, then it's better not to implement it unless we pick up the right approach. So yeah, thank you for that. One more question I would like to ask very quickly. For existing schools looking for change, what is the first step? So I'm speaking about the current systems that some of the schools, they have a rooted system since decades, and they struggle into moving into more forward-thinking school. So thinking design, you've been in innovation as well. You've been in changing the school curriculum implementation, all these. What is the first steps they can take in order to have this transformation across a school?
Yeah. It's a great question. It's a big question. I think it starts with looking at their learners, because that's at the end when we're going to make a change in a school, whether it's an approach to learning or, different curriculum or a tool like you're mentioning AI we've just been speaking about. I think you have to look at what's the learner experience at your school. What is the learner outcome that maybe you want to change or improve, and then I think there's got to be some backward design there. Okay, so what's missing from that learner experience or the way your learners are engaged, and those learner outcomes, and then what are the strategies and tools we can put in place to change those things, so we improve those learner experiences, those learner outcomes, and just the data you're taking from the students. For us, we have leveraged our WAS data, so that's helped us, because all schools should have an accrediting body as an international school. So whether you're WASC or CAS, NEASC, etc., you should be coming back to some of that data to help drive. So if your data is that you need to be doing such and such for students or something around your pedagogy, then what are the ways we can be forward thinking and how we're doing those things? You should have some type of vision or strategic plan at your school too that allows you to think about what's your multi-year vision. That also gets board funding, so you can solidify what you're trying to do. The other thing you have to think about is teacher training as well. If you're going to implement something and you want better outcomes for your learners, well, what skills do my teachers have and not have that we need to put in place in order for them to be able to do this better? And then I would start slow. Too much change too fast is difficult for a school to manage. You have to remember as a leader that I might have something up here, but there's an entire community of learners, of families, of teachers, of operations staff, my learning assistants. So there's a huge community that I'm responsible for, and you have to think about, okay, what's the pace of change that institutionally can be handled? And then you need to find that balance between maybe what might be going on in my head in terms of that vision, because sometimes I think I can be a race car driver, and then thinking about, okay, what is that the school can manage? And last thing I'll add to that, because this, the story of VERSO, how they were able to visit other schools, I think that's gold right there, because you can get lots of free professional learning just from a school visit. If you're in a market like this, let's say there's so many different schools, make some connections, visit some schools, see what they're doing, and you can really get a lot of ideas. Or as a leader, have as a head or your leadership team, get on an accreditation visit and then go out to another school that way, and you can also get a really good idea of some good things happening.
Yeah, and let's take that as an invitation from Dr. Ryan to anyone who would like to visit Bangkok.
Please, we have visitors all the time. We're very proud of this place, and I love giving walkthroughs and talking about what's going on here. So we're happy to have people here, and we are very close to the airport. So if you're on your way in or out, you can always stop by for a little bit.
So you might be seeing me at some point physically.
Sure, I would love to have
meeting
you
at your office. I think I don't like to ask further questions because this is a very concluding question, and you gave a framework and a strategy. Start with the learners, start with the teachers, then build backward what is needed to make the change. And this is, I think, the best approach into education, because this is what matters, how students learn, the outcomes of the students.
Exactly.
I'm very excited for this discussion. I'm happy that we were able to make it, and thank you for your time. I know that you have a very busy day as head of school, but again, the change that we look after is always shareable, and the best way is to transfer the experience, transfer the knowledge. So thank you for a lot of learning that we are going to take from this discussion with you. Is there anything you would like to share before we wrap up this discussion?
I'd just like to say, if people are interested to learn more, please reach out. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm a big believer in mentorship. So for any leaders coming up as well, I've had good mentors in my career who continue to inspire me. And I love to do the same for others. So if there's anyone looking for some advice on how to just be forward thinking with their approach in their school or even in their classroom, please do reach out.
Thank you. Highly appreciated. And thank you again, Dr. Ryan. Enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully we'll have more such insightful discussions in the future. Thank you a lot.
All right. Thank you.
Have a good day.